thought process and going through all the potential scenarios. And he's right. I would have expected a bit more of kind of the Washington guys out in the front, and that didn't evolve. So you had to kind of make a change in your race strategy in real time.
Yeah, and I think it benefits McFarland, who's been in these type of races before. He was the outdoor champ in the 1500 at Big Tens, and that is typical of how these races play out. And I think with the Oregon and Washington guys come in, and they're used to having races like this at the NCAA level, but maybe not the conference level, so it takes them a bit by surprise if it's not playing out as a little bit more of that fast-paced race. I think that was just quick enough where everybody could be in it and battle, but they didn't run the legs off of a strong kicker like McFarland, who we saw kick strong yesterday, who has 147 800-meter speed.
Maggie Leibich of Washington, there front and center. Aaron Reedy of Minnesota. And on the inside, Olivia Millen of Michigan State as we get set for this women's race. Again, Illinois with an 8-point advantage on Oregon. Illinois going to make some big point moves on the inside of the track in that high jump. So Oregon now with a trio of talented runners here. Nielsen among the top 10 all-time in the collegiate ranks now in the mile. We saw Mia Barnett yesterday anchor their DMR to victory in impressive fashion. Allie Ince, also very talented member of this Oregon group, coached by Shalane Flanagan and Jerry Schumacher. But this is a little bit more of a mashup of logos for the Big Ten Conference. Not as much gamesmanship that can be done. In fact, Oregon with 3, Michigan State with 2 in this field of 10, and the rest all individual representatives from their respective schools.
And I think this is a little more typical of what you would expect to see, but we have so many races where there's 3, 4, 5 competing from a single school, and the depth that Oregon has to have 3 in here when the NCAA mile record holder isn't even competing in this event. So we'll see how they're able to approach this one, and if they take a similar team tactic that they did in the men's race.
Shalana Yildiz will be in action later on in the day in the 3,000 meters, that collegiate record holder that Declan just mentioned, and the depth is there. She ran yesterday at 5,000 meters. The Oregon women swept the top 3 places in that 5,000. We'll see how things play off here with Wilma Nielsen going straight to the front, and Leibich, you watch your teammates from Washington race in that men's mile. Perhaps you react and do some real-time revisions to your own race strategy, but that's the great thing about racing as well, Declan. We can have 2 events at the same distances back-to-back, and we could see completely different races.
It's typical of the Big Ten indoor champs that we would see a slow tactical men's mile and then somebody just going after it on the women's side. I think one of the things that might change that is the depth has gotten so much greater in this women's mile now that it makes you think a little bit more about just trying to run everyone out of it, where that's just been kind of an easy decision for 1 or 2 individuals that may say, well, I can take it out and I'm going to be first or second. Well, now if you take it out and you falter, you might fall out of the points entirely.
Does seem like they're out for a Saturday jog a little bit here early on in this mile. We'll get the next split at 609 meters. Nielsen, Leibich. And on the inside, that's Kane of Penn State wearing hip 5. Nielsen through 609 in 1:48.03. And they're just kind of saving everything in the tank for the second half of this race.
Yeah, it's no surprise. There's just so much depth in this, and we saw how things shook out yesterday, where it did get competitive late in some of the heats. So I think we're going to see that ramp up coming soon. Somebody's going to get a little bit anxious as we approach the halfway mark, and it looks like Aaron Reedy of Minnesota is the first one, and there's a fall. Yeah,
down to the track goes Berlin Schutz of Nebraska, but is going to be able to benefit from this pace and get right back into the race here. So let's keep an eye on where she ends up in this race as Nilsson. And, at that point, when you start to see something like that happen, and if you feel like you're in a position to win this race, you kind of just want to attack now.
Yeah, and the way that you see the arms are going up in the back still, people are still kind of fighting for room. Oftentimes something like that would make somebody jump and try and grab the race, and nobody really did it. And because the pace was so pedestrian, Schutz just said she got up, didn't even have time to think about it, but slotted herself right back in on the rail and is in this race. Maybe had to exert a little bit more. The adrenaline might be a little too high, but she's in a better position now than she was before the fall.
Coming up on 1,200 meters here when they reach the line. And Nilsson, just like Elliott Cook for the Ducks in that men's race, trying to lead this one wire to wire. Leibich right there on her back shoulder as she has been for several laps there. They went 34.75 on that last lap, almost 2 seconds faster, Declan. The race is officially on.
Yeah, it's that slow grind and wind up that Nilsson is pulling right now, and you see Leibich is starting to fall a half step off, and now you see the other Oregon Ducks, Barnett and Ince, are trying to move up on the outside. Barnett is making the move now, but Nilsson's got to jump on the field.
Yeah, 1 lap to run now. Nilsson and Barnett make it Oregon 1 and 2. That's Kane of Penn State in third. And here is Ince of Oregon now inching into fourth. That battle for points is going to be big here, but there is going to be no battle at the front of this for who will finish in front as Wilma Nilsson in full stride. The junior from Oregon looks behind, sees a favorite color behind her as well as green and yellow crosses the line in a cascading effect here. Ince, it looks like, falls a bit away, but Oregon amasses first and second place points here on the heels of that win in the DMR, the sweep of the top 3 places in the 5,000. And for a school that apparently has some reputation of being reasonably good in the distances, back on those West Coast days in the Pac-12, well, welcome to the Big Ten as Wilma Nilsson and Mia Barnett sweep the women's mile here in Indy.
Well, it was just a really well-executed slow burn from Nilsson. Barnett clearly knew what the plan was, and she was right there. We see here, looks right about where we saw that fall, and there Schutz was trying to make her move out to the outside, just not enough room when everyone's that tight. And then Nilsson ramped it up, and you see down the backstretch, 2 Michigan State athletes, Stuart Barnett and Millen, were making the move around. They moved themselves into 4th and 5th. Kylie Kane kept fighting and moved her way into 3rd and held on, but it was thrown up the O there for Wilma Nilsson. Mia Barnett tucked in behind her for 2nd. And it ends up being 20 points for the Ducks. That's no surprise. But they did, I think, what the Washington Huskies thought they were going to do on the men's side. And the women of Oregon are able to accomplish